Welcome back. This is Sleepless Ronin, and this is another review of The Bad Batch. Today we're talking about Episode 3, Replacements. I actually think this episode is a lot more interesting than Episode 2. This episode overall was much more interesting. First off, we see that Tech is experimenting or building a scanner to test out the functionality of their control chips, which is probably a pretty good thing to do because we're going to get hints in this episode after Wrecker hits his head that the control chips could possibly come online after the fact. We don't know this for certain yet, but just from what Wrecker keeps grabbing at his head and complaining about stuff because it looks like, he took a bump on the crash. Yeah, that to me implies that they need to probably still remove their control chips, or else they're going to go insane. Or not go insane, but they're going to fall under the Empire's sway. That's all interesting and good. But the real interesting part of this whole episode actually comes from the parts of the episode that center around Tarkin and the Kaminoans. Tarkin is working with another admiral named Rampart on Project Warmantle, which I'm thinking must be the replacement of the clones with garrisoned stormtroopers. That's really interesting because they're going to use the clones to train the new conscripted soldiers. And that's a lot about this episode is watching the Kaminoans react to the fact that these two guys, Tarkin and Rampart, are discussing essentially the economic downfall of Kamino right in front of them. They're not even paying any attention. They're just like, blah, 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 blah. We'll replace these expensive clones with cheaper garrison soldier or conscripted soldiery. And yeah, right in front of these guys, which is interesting. Because one of the last things we get from the Kaminoans is the fact that their original genetic material from Jango Fett is decaying. It's no longer as good as it was, or no longer viable or something like that. And so they need to get back the clones that don't want to come back, aka Clone Force 99 and Omega. That's interesting because the Kaminoans now want to capture these clones because they need the genetic material to produce more clones. I don't know why they just don't go to someone else and get the genetic material to create a whole new race of clones, but maybe it's just easier if they use the ones that already exist and modify that. I don't really 100% know, but it's very interesting because this whole episode could be setting up essentially the downfall of the Kaminoan society, at least economically, because if there's no clones continuing, because let's say the Bad Batch successfully escapes them in the course of the series and never has their genetics re-brought in, and they never get to use Omega's genetics or whatever, then the Kaminoan society could easily collapse because it no longer has the funding from the clone production, which could explain why in the time we get to when the original series rolls or original trilogy rolls around, where there's not a lot of clone soldiers left at all, because Project Warmantle combined with the degrading genetic material means that they're no longer being produced and no longer being used. It's kind of like this episode sets up the reason why there are no real clone troopers at the time of A New Hope, or even the time of Rebels, when all the clones are just the aging clones like Rex and Wolf. That's what's left. It's going to be interesting to see because I actually think this episode was pretty good on that. It gave us the right drops of information about what's going to be coming up for the future of these things. And it starts explaining why some of these Imperial projects, and it starts explaining why the state of the galaxy is going to be the state of the galaxy come 19 years in the future or whatever when we have A New Hope. So I like this episode quite a bit, mostly for the Tarkin parts, actually. It was interesting. Oh, briefly, I thought we might be seeing Fennec Shand in this episode, but I'm 100% certain that it is not her, it's just someone else. We'll have to look forward to Fennec Shand appearing in a later episode. Nonetheless, overall, I thought this was a pretty good episode. I enjoyed it. I don't think I enjoyed it quite as much as Episode 1, but I definitely enjoyed it more than Episode 2. That's where this one stands. I like the Tarkin bits quite a bit. So, this is Sleepless Ronin saying, sayonara, and may the Force be with you.